and we were there a good few hours before, waiting for a long time. But then he arrived, and yeah, I remember seeing him get out of his car, and my heart was just pounding. Even just being in the presence of him was enough. He came to our side of the barrier. There were two sides of the barrier. He came to our side of the barrier, and eventually he came to me, and he thanked me for coming out and everything, and he signed my CD. And it was the CD he signed for me was actually my greatest hit CD that my dad gave me. Exactly, it was just incredible. And then I remember going back to the hotel for an hour or so before the show, and I remember when I got back, I just broke down in tears of happiness of what just happened. I just met and had a brief conversation with the boss, and that was just he's been my hero my whole life, and I met him. I was crying for ages.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Set Listing Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson. Joining me today in a timey-wimey episode, it is my night, his early morning. Robbie Spicer is joining me. Robbie, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so tell us a little about yourself.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm currently 19 years old. I'm born and raised in London, although right now I'm currently studying at university in Liverpool, so
Very
north of England.
nice.
So yeah, when I'm in Liverpool here, I'm living in a house with 7 other great lads. They're brilliant, having a great time. But then when I'm back in London, I live with my family. I live with my parents and my sister.
Oh, okay. Very nice. What are you studying in Liverpool?
I'm doing sociology with criminology.
Oh, okay. What do you want to be when you grow up, or do you not know yet?
Oh, I have no idea, if I'm being honest.
Okay. No, that is,
Yeah.
I absolutely get that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I'm so glad you're here. I'm glad you reached out to me and said you wanted to visit. So we always start at the beginning. So talk about growing up. What kind of music did your family listen to when you were growing up? Was it a musical family?
Yes, it's definitely a musical family. I swear, I think most of my music in our family came from my dad. He's always loved his music. I think a large part of my music taste has definitely come from him. He's always been a great fan of, the Beatles, and then Paul McCartney and the Wings, Talking Heads, Nick Hayward, Haircut 100. And more recently, actually, he's a massive fan of Frank Turner, who he's seen many times live. And yeah, he's also a big fan of collecting vinyl records. So throughout my childhood, I was just listening to a load of his albums, growing up as a kid, which was brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And have you, I often ask this with my adult guests,
Yeah.
did you run to a point when you're a teenager or in college where you rebelled against your parents' music? But that would be about this point in your life, and I take it you're not rebelling, right?
No, not at the moment. No, definitely not. No.
Very nice. That's good.
Yeah.
Why are you going to school in Liverpool? What is just that there's a really good school for that, or just why you ended up going there?
Well, yeah, it's a great university as itself, but also I just love this city. I think it's fantastic. There's so much going on. It's just brilliant. And a nice change of scenery as well. So that's brilliant.
Well, very cool. Cool. So, you mentioned in your email that, you're 19 and, in love with Bruce's music. And you aren't alone. I've had multiple guests that young on the podcast, but yes, normally, it's all us old guys and gals are listening.
Yeah.
How did you first discover Bruce?
Well, I do actually remember very clearly the exact time I discovered Bruce. I think I'd say it was probably my 8th birthday. I think I was celebrating with my family.
Okay.
And I remember my parents very kindly got me an iPod Nano for my birthday.
All
which
right.
at that time was, that was the device to have. That's,
Absolutely.
making popular in school and everything. So, but yeah, at that age, I hadn't really truly discovered my music taste. So what my dad did is he just downloaded every song he had in his iTunes library onto that iPod. And all I did basically was just press shuffle on the iPod constantly and just listen to whatever came up. Um, and I remember a few days after my birthday, just pressing shuffle. And one time, randomly, Dancing in the Dark from his Greatest Hits album comes on, which my dad had downloaded. And I just remember absolutely falling in love with that song. The organ playing, his voice, the lyrics, everything. And from then on, that song I would listen to as many times as possible every day. And then, I tried seeing what other Springsteen songs were downloaded on this iPod. And I remember there were only two other songs that my dad had on this. He had Born in the USA, which is also from his Greatest Hits,
Mhm.
and he had the music video to Glory Days.
Okay.
And I just, listened to all three of those songs constantly, and I just loved them all, and that was brilliant. And then I went to my dad eventually, and I said, "Yeah, this Bruce guy, he's pretty good. I quite like him." And I remember him straight away. He went and he gave me his Springsteen Greatest Hits CD, which he had for some time, and he said, "You know what? This is yours. Keep it. Go listen to more of his songs." And I just remember listening to it on my dad's CD player and just loving every single one. And yeah, and then as time went on, I started creating my own playlist with Springsteen songs. And I remember I first made a specific Springsteen playlist that only had 20 songs on it, but I loved everyone. And actually, to this day, on my phone now, I still have that same playlist.
That
Although
exact
now
same. Yeah.
it's got more than 250 songs, I believe, from him.
Right.
Yeah.
I ask this often, and Robbie, and it's okay if you can't articulate, but why? What about his music? What about Dancing in the Dark spoke to you?
I'd say for me, at first, when I first discovered him, I think it was the uniqueness of his music that spoke
Okay.
to me. I never really heard any brass or any saxophone in any rock and roll songs. And that was
Right.
probably what I first loved about the E Street Band.
Okay.
But yeah, nowadays, I've now grown up with Bruce throughout my teenage years into
Right.
adulthood. I think it's hard to say now what his music speaks to me, is probably mainly his lyrics, you
Right.
know, and I think they're just amazing in every sense. I think one standout just off the top of my head would be from The Promised Land.
Yeah.
I think specifically from his Springsteen on Broadway version, the lyric,
Yeah.
Mr. I ain't a boy, no, I'm a man,
Right.
and I believe in the promised land. That has always had such great meaning to me that no other artist has even come close to matching.
Yeah.
And that's just brilliant.
Do um as you said you started out with this 20 playlist, and so did you start going and saving your money and going to music stores and looking for other CDs, vinyls, whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've actually for a few years now I've been collecting vinyls and CDs,
Yeah.
especially along with my dad as well. And I would just constantly look for Bruce and just
Yeah.
diving deeper and deeper into his music. And that's what just made it my love for him keep expanding. The amount of songs that I found that I just absolutely loved was just endless.
Yeah.
Mm.
It is a it's especially rewarding. I think of it in terms of like an author or a writer. Sometimes you discover a writer that's only done a couple of novels, and that's exciting. But then you find this writer, and he or she has like 30 books. And
Yeah.
you're like, oh my goodness, I have all this to look forward to.
Yeah.
So I guess that's been for you. Like just as you got the greatest hits, and then you look at other things. Can can you can you talk about a couple of albums that really, like, when you got them, you went, holy moly, this is something different? Or talk a little bit about, as you going through this journey, share some stories behind that, Robbie.
Yeah. Well, I remember for a long time now, one of my favorite albums of his has always been Tunnel of Love. And I remember actually, going out and buying that CD, listening to it, and just
Yeah.
thinking, it's incredible. So many, they're all just such beautiful songs. One Step Up has always been very
Yeah.
close to me, as well as Valentine's Day. When You're Alone, they're all amazing. And Spare Parts, that's just such an epic song. That's just incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the anniversary of it being released, and there was a little bit of love for it on Twitter, and people saying that, a lot of them were picking, in my top 10 or my top 5. It's also one of my favorites. What I find interesting, Robbie, and I'm going to try to say this without sounding condescending, so you won't tell me to go, screw myself, but I often fans, I feel like they don't enjoy Tunnel of Love until they've had their heart broken a couple of times, or they've been in a relationship for a long time, and so I think that's very intuitive and very knowledgeable of you to understand that music right away, because I do think he's coming from a very different place, especially compared to Born in the USA. When you think about it, he went from Born in the USA to Tunnel of Love. You went, holy crap, how do you do that? Yeah. So have you got to see him live yet?
Well, yeah, actually, unfortunately, I've only seen him once live, but for my age, I think that's still pretty lucky.
No, I think that's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually there was one other time which I was close to seeing him, which was actually his River tour in 2016.
Okay.
I remember he was playing in Wembley Stadium. I think it was June that year. And I remember asking my dad and my parents, "Oh, please, I have to see him."
Yeah,
please.
I have to go. Yeah.
Yeah, and they initially agreed, but then annoyingly, that day that he was performing, that night even, was the night before one of my end of year school exams.
Okay.
Which was such bad timing, and obviously I would have seen Bruce any day.
Oh yeah, sure. Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
I mean, we can take a test anytime. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, my parents decided against it, which was very annoying. It wasn't even that important of a test, which is,
Yeah, exactly. When did you get to see him?
Well, yeah, actually, then I think a couple years later, my dad told me that he actually got tickets to see Springsteen on Broadway in New York.
Wow. Okay.
And that, I remember my whole family telling me, being so excited to tell me that myself and my dad are going to fly out to New York specifically to see him. And I remember when they told me, it took a while to set in.
Sure.
And I remember they were saying to me, you don't seem happy. And I'm just there, just trying to actually figure out what's happening,
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think it was December 2018. My dad and I flew out. We stayed in New York a couple of days before, seeing the sights, being a tourist. And then, yeah, the show, I remember the whole time we were there, we were so determined for me to actually meet Bruce in the flesh, which I know is a big ask, but we thought, I knew off the internet that when he comes out of the Water Care, everyone's there with him, and I was hoping, maybe he'd see me and I'd get him to maybe sign my CD if I was lucky.
Right.
But after the show, he didn't really stop around. He just sort of waved to everyone with Patty and got in his car and everything. But then we figured out, he's got to get into the theatre, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So we thought, okay, we figured out from there that if we get there a few hours earlier before the show, we wait for him. And that's when he actually stops and he signs everyone's photos. He says hi to everyone. So we did that. And we were there a good few hours before, waiting for a long time. But then he arrived. And yeah, I remember seeing him get out of his car. And my heart was just pounding. Even just being in the presence of him was enough.
Right.
But yeah, he came to our side of the barrier. There were two sides of the barrier. He came to our side of the barrier. And eventually he came to me and, he thanked me for coming out and everything. And he signed my CD. And it was the CD he signed for me was actually my greatest hit CD that my dad gave me. The first Springsteen album that I've ever owned.
How perfect is that, right?
Exactly. It was just incredible. And then, I remember going back to the hotel for an hour or so before the show. And I remember when I got back, I just broke down in tears of happiness of what just happened. I just met and had a brief conversation with the boss And that was just, he's been my hero my whole life. And I met him, I was crying for ages. And then, you know, we went to the show and got there, and our seats were incredible. I think we were probably about 5 rows from the front, dead center. And he comes out and he starts playing Growing Up, and just that guitar riff made me start crying again. The fact that I'm sitting 30, 40 feet away from my hero. And the whole show was obviously just incredible. And actually, to this day, my dad, he still mentions, he's always said, you know, a year or so later after he said I couldn't go to the River Tour, he said to me how much he regrets it, because he realized that, you know, it wasn't that important of an exam and I could have gone.
Right.
And he still says to me how much he regrets it. But every time he says that, I say, Dad, you have redeemed yourself 1,000 times over with what you gifted me with that.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not worried about that at all anymore.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Had you researched and knew what was on the set list in Broadway before you went?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember. I remember listening to all the song there. I think at that point, the only song I didn't really know that he was playing was "The Wish."
Okay.
But I started that. I found that I heard it before, but I never really properly listened to it. But then I started listening to that again, and that was just amazing. That's another song to add to the list. And yeah, it was a great set list, brilliant set list.
Yeah. The Wish was on my list. You know, I'm going to ask you a little bit about, you know, songs you want to hear live sometime, but
yeah.
The Wish was on my list, and I was able to go to Broadway as well, and to hear that live was something special, and to hear him talk about his mom, knowing that his mom is fighting Alzheimer's, just was really emotional. Yeah, it was really good. What are some other songs or albums that mean something to you?
If I were to mention another album, I think it would have to be Western Stars.
Okay.
I remember when it first came out, I wasn't really, well, so before it came out, I wasn't too sure how I would like it, just because it's, you know, quite different to everything he's done before.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, but I just remember listening. He released, I think, 3 songs beforehand for the whole album. I loved all 3 of them, and then he released the whole album, and that was just incredible. Went to go see the movie with my dad in cinema, yet again with my dad. He never really listened to that album, but after that movie, he was loving it as well.
Yeah.
You know, he plays the Wayfarer, Tucson Train. He plays them very often now.
Yeah, I have coming up. I have the people that run my podcast network are not big Springsteen fans, and so I was talking about them, and we were trying to figure out a way that they could join me. You know, they're like, hey, you know, and I said, well, have you watched Western Stars? And they go, no, what's that? I said, few years ago, Bruce put out an album, and then he didn't tour, but he filmed it, performing it live at this beautiful barn that's on his property. And so they texted me while they were watching it, went, oh my goodness, thank you so much for sharing this with us. This is good. So I'm excited about having them on to talk about it. And it's interesting too. I have had multiple people tell me that they didn't enjoy the CD, but once they saw the movie, they felt a different they felt a connection to the music. I thought it was a great CD right from the beginning, and just really enjoyed it. It feels like a collection of short stories.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you know, like similar to Nebraska, not in style, but Nebraska had little bitty stories, and this one really did feel like almost an Elmore Leonard or Zane Grey could have been writing these short stories about, you know, this people in the West. That's good. Are there other songs, albums, or other stories to share about experiences? Like, so did you go see Blind by the Light, and did you go, oh, that's me?
Oh yeah. We actually got a premiere viewing of that, me and my family, to go see that movie.
Oh really?
That wasn't being shown a whole lot around where we were. We got a premiere viewing in the cinema to go see that, because obviously I was so excited. And that spoke to me as well, just, you know, growing up through your teenage years, which are just extremely important years, and the fact that that kid Bruce helped him so much, and I really do agree with that. You know, I just throughout my life, you know, if I've ever had hard times, you know, with school, with friends, with anything, you know, I've always thought to myself, Bruce will always be with me. I'll
Right.
always have Bruce, and he'll always stay with me, and that just made my love for him even bigger.
You know, I quote often, you know, Land of Hope and Dreams, where he says, "You'll need a good companion for this part of the ride," and I always think of that. He's been a good companion for me through, you know, good times, bad times, health problems, you know, challenging times. That music has always been there to kind of keep me company and keep me motivated and keep me cheerful, you know, or when I feel like being sad, you know, play some of his sad songs and just enjoy that sadness. Yeah. That's awesome. So are you mentioned you it sounds like you haven't been able to convert a lot of your friends over to Bruce music.
No, not exactly, no.
Yeah.
Although saying that, here at uni, one guy that I'm living with now, my mate Lucas, I remember a good few months back playing just randomly off my playlist, playing if I was the priest.
Yeah.
And he was with me just in the room with me, and I remember him saying to me, "Oh, this is a brilliant song."
Yeah.
And then that was right before one of our long holidays. And I remember coming back after the 3-week holiday, I think it was, and him saying, "This is now my most played song on Spotify."
Oh, how funny.
And I've been listening to it on repeat. My parents are now going insane with how much I've been listening to it. And from that, he's now started listening to some more songs. He loves Ghosts. He loves Spirit in the Night. I played Frankie for him even, and he loves that as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's that. I love, you know, introducing Bruce to people. I just think it's amazing.
Talk to me about when Letter to You came out. What were your thoughts? What were you talked about? Weren't sure on Western Stars, but and then fell in love with it. Talk to me about Letter to You.
Well, I remember being so excited because that, I think that for me was I'd probably say that's the only E Street Band album that I remember, like the release of it and everything.
Right. Yes.
And the release day, because obviously we had Western Stars, but that's not E Street. But
exactly.
Yeah, I remember, you know, pre-ordering my CD, getting to me, being alone in my uni room, taking a good amount of time out to just listen to it all the way through. And again, same with Western Stars, just every song is a banger, and I love every single one. I remember listening to Last Man Standing. I think I'd have to mention that one. That's incredible. And also think another one I have to mention, which has helped me quite recently. It might sound a bit silly to say this, but around Easter time this year, my family and we had to put down our family cat.
Sure.
And you know, people think, "Oh, it's just a cat and everything." But when I honestly, she was my best friend for the 12 years that she was with us.
Yes.
And that really did hit me hard. That really did. And what song helped me the most with that, I think, was "I'll See You in My Dreams."
Yes.
You know, because, you know, it just speaks to me. I still do see her in my dreams, weirdly enough, and I know I will see her again. When, you know, and that's just that is another example of how Bruce has helped me throughout my life.
You know, Robbie, couple of comments. One, you know, in 2011, my father had passed away, and you know, you kind of mentioned that on social media, and you get a lot of posts, a lot of people, you know, saying really kind things and loving things. When our beagle passed, I swear we got more compliments and more kind thoughts than it was losing my dad. There's just everyone understands that pet, that you know, that connection they have with us. And yeah, absolutely, I do. And that I'll See You in My Dreams is such a powerful song, and you know, he's now taken to using that to close this second trip on Broadway, and it's a perfect song to
Yeah,
do that.
yeah,
And so yeah, I get that totally.
mm,
That's funny. Do um what what are what are some songs like, let's, the band tours in 2022, they go to Europe, they're there in the UK, what are songs you're chasing? What do you want to hear besides obviously Western Stars and Letter to You, right? We just want
yeah,
you to play them, but what
yeah.
are other things you want to hear?
Um, Honestly, I think I would love to hear a good amount of songs from Tracks. I'm a massive fan of Tracks. All those deep tunes, all the amount of hidden gems in that compilation is just
It is
endless.
amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's so many that when I try to look up if he's performed them live, he's only performed them once or a couple of times and everything. And I think one standout for me, which I'd probably say was my favorite song of his of all time for a long time, but it's still up there, definitely, is "Take Them as They Come."
Yeah.
I love that one more than anything, and I think he's only performed that when it's been recorded once, and that
Right.
was it was a request, and it was a bit just impromptu and everything.
Yeah, the sign
But
requests. Yeah.
yeah, but that would be incredible. Another one as well, "Brothers Under the Bridges," '83.
Yes.
That just the last verse in that song and the sax solo
Yeah.
is just incredible, and I think seeing that live would be amazing because I do think that is a very powerful song, and I
Yeah.
love it. And also as well, another one from Tracks, "Thundercrack."
Yeah.
He's only performed that a handful of times, but
Yeah.
that what a ballad and what an incredible song that it stretches out for so long, but I'm never ever bored. And he's done. I've seen him perform it a few times. I think he performed it at Leeds once on the River Tour, which I've seen a video of, and that he sort of changes the ending with a sax solo and the violin and everything, and that's just even better, I think. And yeah, that would be amazing. That would be
Hmm.
brilliant. Mm.
Yeah, I know. I think all of us have our lists of things that we want to see, and I agree. I have several from Tracks.
Yeah.
Where the bands are, Lion's Den.
Oh yeah, definitely.
This
Hmm.
I love Ain't Good Enough from The Promise.
Oh, I absolutely love that one. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was in my top five for a long while as well. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
yeah,
It seems it's such a fun pop song,
yeah.
and it's so, yeah, that's awesome.
That would be
uh
brilliant live.
yeah,
That would really would be.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
so um what else, what am I not asking you that I should, Robbie?
yeah. Oof. Um,
Are there other stories? It's been there, one of the things that I do, and I get picked on a lot, is that
yeah,
it seems like no matter what the circumstances, I can find a Bruce lyric to match it or tell a Springsteen story that seems to fit the mood.
yeah.
So how about you? I mean, it sounds like it, he is a major influence and part of your life. So share a little bit, maybe some of the stories behind that, of where he's helped you get into the music, has helped you get through something.
Oh yeah. Well, I really do just believe being a big fan of Bruce has really helped me discover myself and actually helped me create my own identity. I
Yeah.
really don't think I would be where I am right now without him. I really
Mm,
don't. And yeah, I think one song that was one of my early ones that I heard from him
yeah.
was 10th Avenue Freeze Out, because that's quite a hit, and that I discovered that
Yeah.
quite quickly. Um, and that was my favorite for a long time as well. I've just had so many favorites; it changes so often.
Yeah.
But yeah, seeing videos of that live, I mean, I would just love that. The shout out to Clarence at the at the
Yeah.
middle part as well, with the round of applause and everything. To see that live would be incredible. I
Oh yeah.
actually, kind of a funny story. My sort of group of friends at uni, us lads, we all I'm not really sure how it started, but we all just sort of given each other nicknames that we sort of refer to each other as.
Sure.
And, they're just a bit random. And mine, which I think I made them believe that it was their idea, but I sort of manipulated and sneaking it.
Yes.
It was actually, they started calling me Scooter.
I love it. Yes.
Scooter when the big man busts the city in half. And that's
Yeah.
just like, it's just a little shout out to Bruce as well, which they don't know. If they listen to this, obviously they'll find out, but
Yeah.
and that's great. And I've always sort of found ways to put E Street Band references in my life. Saying this when I'm the youngest within my school year, like I'm near the end of August, which is when I was
Okay.
and so when all my mates turned 18 and started, drinking and going out and everything, I couldn't do that. So eventually I managed to get a little, quite bad fake ID, which I
Yeah.
used a few times. And I actually, I could design it myself and choose my name. My name on the ID was actually Daniel Paul Federici. And I'd show it to everyone, and they'd be like, "Oh, that's a really cool name." I'd be like, "Yeah, it is, yeah." And that's just a little reference,
just a little joke for yourself.
Yeah, it is, yeah. And no, yeah, exactly. No one gets that but me. But yeah, that's just quite funny as well.
We had the company I work for owns an Airstream, an RV, and they had a naming contest, and an Airstream is the silver RV, and so it looks a little bit like Rosie the maid on Jetsons, and so several people suggested Rosie, and I suggested Rosie, but not because of Rosalita, right? Like that's in my mind, and Rosie ended up being the name they chose, but in my mind, it's Rosalita, right? The full name of the Airstream is Rosalita, and we just call it Rosie for short. Yeah, that's brilliant. That's so good. Good. So school going well?
Yeah, school's brilliant at the moment. I'm really enjoying my course. I'm really enjoying the people I'm with.
Yeah.
So that's great. Yeah.
That's good. And did the semester just start just a month or so ago? Or
no, it started for me 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
So I actually, I'm in my second year of uni now, and all of my first year were just online classes.
I was going to ask how things are going over there with the pandemic and everything. Are some things back in person now?
Yeah. So I actually had my first in-person seminar today.
Wow.
Earlier on today, and that was weird, but very nice to actually meet people off my course in person.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
What that is.
And we still wear masks, we still keep our distance where we can, but we just being in the same room as people and having a conversation, not on just talking with a group of people on Zoom is quite.
Oh yeah, it's got to be really nice. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Before I let you go, I got to ask you the Mary question.
Of course.
So if you are Robbie's friend and you're listening to this, thank you. Jay Armstrong is an honors English teacher from the Philadelphia area. He recently retired, but he is the one who created this. Every year, his seniors, high school seniors, would, in their honors English class, would spend 2 days breaking apart the song Thunder Road, looking at the lyrics, talking about the imagery, the words Bruce picked, and at the end of the 2 days, he asks his class, does Mary get in the car? So Robbie Spicer, that is your question. Does Mary get in the car at the end of Thunder Road?
Okay, being honest, for me, I think the answer to this question is easy.
Okay.
I think it is definitely yes.
All right.
And the reason for that, I really do believe that all, or at least most, of Clarence and Jake's solos in Bruce's songs tell a story in itself, which I think is a great way to do this without lyrics.
Yes.
And that incredible solo at the end, I think the mood of that just tells me that it's a happy ending where Mary does indeed get in the car. And I see it, with other songs, especially, Jungle Land, of course. And even songs, Janie, Don't You Lose Heart as well. I really do believe the saxophone solos are more than just a solo. They actually help to tell and expand on what Bruce is singing about.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
agree.
why I really do believe that Mary did get in that car, and it's a very happy ending.
So what I find a little bit um, wonderful to share with you, Robbie, is I had a guy on, and his answer was it depends. He
Right.
says when the E Street Band do Thunder Road, she gets in the car because that triumphant sax solo
Yeah.
is a sound of joy, is a sound
Yeah.
of going.
Hmm.
He said when Bruce does it solo and
Yeah.
he ends the song with the kind of him humming,
I mean, yeah,
he
yeah,
doesn't get in the car. He's driving off
yeah,
by himself.
yeah. I remember
And
listening to that podcast. Yeah, I think that
and
was
I
Alec,
think that's
wasn't it?
perfect. That
Yeah.
is, I think, a perfect answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I see that as well. Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
So if someone wants to reach Robbie, are you on social media? What's the best way to reach you?
Yes. I say probably the best way to reach me would be on Instagram,
Okay.
which is just at Robbie Spicer. Nothing different. Nothing else.
Okay.
It was actually quite easy to find me. My profile picture has always been the cover of Born to Run.
Very
So that might.
nice.
Yeah.
Good.
I'm also on Twitter as well. I do like to talk all things Bruce with people.
Okay.
And my Twitter tag for that is at Spicer_Robbie.
Okay, good. All
Yeah.
right. Do you have any final words or thoughts you want to share?
Yeah, I would actually. I'd quite like to just give a quick shout out to the company Hungry Heart. Don't know if you've heard of it. You might mention it before on this show. It's a UK company that arrange club nights where they specifically only play E Street songs all night.
Yes.
And throughout lockdown, from since the first lockdown, they've always been doing live streams where I can just tune in, listen to the music, and talk to some great people about it, which I rarely get to do. And
Hannah,
last
right?
summer they actually, so yeah,
Hannah?
Hannah, exactly,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And last summer they actually did a 24-hour live stream of just Bruce music for charity. And I'd personally just like to mention that I'm very proud to say I stayed up full 24 hours. I was there for the whole
Yes.
thing with them, which I'm very proud of.
You should
So
be.
yeah, yeah, and that really did help me through lockdown. Just made me excited for events, and just kept me going. So I'd like to thank them for that. That's amazing.
I I I love Burgers and Bruce and Hannah.
Yes.
We have now got to our schedule worked out. She says she wants to be on the podcast. We
Yep.
just haven't been able to work out schedules. I absolutely agree. That is a great shout out. I love the and it's always an interesting time here in the US when they're going on, but it's such they do such a great job of weaving the set list together
Yeah.
where it's not random, it flows
Mhm.
really well. I agree. That's a great shout out and well said, my friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, this has been great. I appreciate your time, and I'm going to sound like a dad now. Go get some rest.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, when he's touring next year, and you get to
Mhm.
see a full E Street Band, I need you to come on again and
I
tell
would
me the
love to.
experience. All right.
Absolutely love to. Thank
All
you.
right, that sounds great. All
Yeah.
right, listeners, go get vaccinated. Remember to wear your mask. Let's all be good to each other because that's how we're going to get through this. Thank you, Robbie. Thank you, listeners. And we'll talk to you soon. Goodbye. Doing a podcast at times can be a one-way conversation, and I hate that. So please let me know what you like and don't like about the work I'm doing. You can reach the podcast via email at setlistingbruce@gmail.com. The show is on Twitter at setlistingbruce, and my personal Twitter is at jessejacksondfw. We have a website, www.setlistingbruce.com. From there, you can find links to other Springsteen podcasts as well as other music-themed podcasts. We have a page devoted to our own SLB All-Star Band. These are guests who have been on the podcast more than 3 times. There is a link to our store where you can purchase Set Listing Bruce shirts, as well as a Mary Question t-shirt. There is a link to our Patreon page where you can sign up to help support the podcast financially. We have different levels and different rewards based on your support. If you don't have any extra cash, and right now who does, you can support the podcast by subscribing via your favorite podcast player and leaving us a review. The more reviews we have, the easier it is for people to find us. And please tell a friend about the podcast, especially if they love Bruce or music, because it will make a difference.
You just heard the fun talking, hard rocking, music loving, album ranking, fan thinking, joy spreading, lyric reading, story sharing podcast that is the one, the only, Set Listing Bruce. The theme for Set Listing Bruce was written by David Rosen, used by permission.